Well, well, well. Look who just triggered an international alert. Hello, you beautiful genetic anomaly. You walking biological mystery. You bloodline they can't classify. Yeah, you. The one whose ancestry just lit up databases in 3 separate nations like a Christmas tree made of classified files and ancient warnings. You thought this was just one of those DNA test kits, didn't you? Spit in a tube. Find out you're 3% Scandinavian, maybe connect with a distant cousin. But no. What came back wasn't heritage. It was a Homeland Security briefing. What came back wasn't family history. It was a threat assessment. What came back made someone, somewhere, in 3 different capitals, whisper the same terrified phrase into a secure line. We found one. See, they tell you bloodlines don't matter anymore, that we're all just modern humans shuffling through our mundane little lives. That lineage is just a cute dinner party conversation. But that's the lie they need you to believe, because if you really knew what runs through your veins, what genetic memory pulses in your cells, what your ancestors were before history got rewritten by the victors, you'd understand why 3 governments just went into emergency session. You'd understand why your name is now circulating in rooms with no windows. You'd understand why suddenly people who've never spoken to you are very interested in having a private conversation, not an interview, not a friendly chat. A conversation, the kind with leather chairs, one-way mirrors, and questions that start with, how much do you know about your family's real history? Let me tell you what happened the moment your results came back. Somewhere in a lab, a geneticist looked at a screen and froze. Not confused, terrified. Because your markers, your genetic signature, your bloodline code, it matched patterns they've been tracking for decades. Patterns that aren't supposed to exist anymore. Patterns that were supposed to be extinct, eliminated, erased from the human gene pool centuries ago through very deliberate, very quiet programs disguised as plagues, wars, and witch hunts. But here you are, a genetic ghost, walking proof that some bloodlines refuse to die. Your DNA isn't just unique. It's archaeological evidence. It's a living fossil. It's the kind of thing that makes people realize history is a controlled narrative, and you're the glitch in that narrative. They tried to track these bloodlines before, not for research, for containment. Because people with your genetic markers, people from your lineage, they don't behave like normal citizens. They don't think like the rest. They don't break like they're supposed to. Throughout history, they've been the rebels, the visionaries, the ones who couldn't be controlled through fear or religion or law. They've been the shamans who saw too clearly, the leaders who refused to bow, the artists who painted truths, empires wanted buried. Every time your ancestors appeared in the historical record, chaos followed. Not because they were violent, but because they were awake. And awake people who can't be hypnotized by the system, are the most dangerous threat to any power structure. So here's what's happening right now. While you're watching this, while you're processing this information that's probably making your skin crawl with recognition. In one nation, they're pulling your file, cross-referencing your social media, your purchase history, your travel patterns, building a profile to determine threat level. In another, they're assembling a team, specialists in genetic counseling, which is just a polite term for how do we neutralize this without it looking suspicious. And in the third, someone much older, much more informed than any elected official, is looking at your bloodline chart and remembering old stories, old wars, old promises that certain families would never rise again. All three governments want the same thing: to understand how you slipped through, how your lineage survived when they were so certain they'd pruned this particular branch from the human family tree. You want to know what they found when they traced your bloodline back? Not just names and dates. They found connections, patterns. Your ancestors keep appearing at historical turning points, always on the wrong side of official history, always branded as heretics, rebels, witches, conspirators. But here's the thing: they were always right. The history books call them traitors, but the truth whispers they were the only ones who wouldn't trade freedom for security. Your great-great however many grandmother, she was labeled hysterical, but her writings predicted everything happening now. Your ancestor 4 generations back disappeared without explanation, but right before vanishing, he published research that made 3 governments very, very nervous. It's all there in the genetic memory, in the blood that remembers even when conscious minds forget. Now they're wondering if you know, if you've felt it, if you've noticed that you don't process information like everyone else, that you see patterns before they complete, that you can't be gaslit even when everyone around you insists you're wrong. They're wondering if you've figured out yet that your instincts aren't anxiety, they're ancestral warnings, that your inability to trust authority isn't a personality flaw, it's genetic wisdom, that your feeling of not belonging isn't depression, it's your bloodline recognizing that this system was never built for people like you. See, they can handle rebels, they can handle activists, they can handle protesters and dissidents. What they can't handle is someone whose very DNA is coded for resistance, someone who doesn't need to be radicalized because revolution is literally in their blood. Here's what terrifies them most. You're not alone. Your bloodline isn't the only one that survived. There are others scattered across the planet, waking up to the same realization, getting the same mysterious interest from authorities, feeling the same ancient recognition. And the moment you all figure out you're connected, the moment this scattered diaspora of awakened bloodlines finds each other, that's when the real conversation begins. Not the one they want to have with you in some secure facility. The conversation between those who remember and those who are finally ready to stop forgetting. That's the conversation that changes everything. So when they come, and they will come, with their smiles and their tests and their opportunities and their very concerned questions about your well-being, understand what's really happening. They're not studying you. They're assessing you, determining if you're controllable, if you're aware, if you're dangerous. And here's the beautiful, terrifying truth. There's no right answer. If you pretend ignorance, they'll monitor you forever, waiting for activation. If you show knowledge, you become a priority target. If you resist, you confirm their fears. The only move is to become so undeniably yourself, so completely aligned with whatever that bloodline coded into you, that their categories break trying to contain you. You know what's funny? They thought they were so clever. Centuries of breeding programs disguised as social engineering. Centuries of eliminating bloodlines through targeted conflicts. Centuries of rewriting history so your ancestors look like villains instead of visionaries. And yet here you are, unbroken, uncontrolled. A genetic middle finger to every authority that tried to erase your lineage. Your existence is proof that some things can't be killed, only suppressed. And suppression always ends the same way, with eruption. They wanted you extinct. Instead, you're awake. And that might be the most revolutionary thing that's happened in their carefully controlled timeline in the last 100 years. Let's go deeper into what they're really afraid of, because this isn't about you individually. It's about what you represent genetically. See, your bloodline carries markers, specific genetic expressions that correlate with things that make power structures very uncomfortable. Enhanced pattern recognition, heightened threat detection, resistance to psychological manipulation, an almost allergic reaction to authoritarian structures. These aren't superpowers. They're survival adaptations that your ancestors developed because they lived through things most people can't imagine. Genocides disguised as religious movements, purges disguised as progress, erasures disguised as enlightenment. Your DNA remembers when speaking truth meant execution, when thinking differently meant persecution, when refusing to comply meant your entire family line could be eliminated. And now, centuries later, that genetic memory is active in you. You can't watch the news without seeing the patterns. You can't listen to official narratives without hearing the contradictions. You can't accept comfortable lies even when the truth is terrifying. This isn't paranoia. This is your bloodline's immune system recognizing familiar threats. Your ancestors survived by developing an early warning system, and you inherited it. That's why you've always felt watched, monitored, observed, not because you're crazy, but because on some level, you've always been on their radar. They track bloodlines. They always have. And yours just moved from dormant to active status. Here's what the three governments know that you're just discovering. Your bloodline has been involved in every major resistance movement for the last 1,000 years, just under different names, different languages, different causes. But the pattern is identical. Wherever there was centralized power trying to control human consciousness, your ancestors were the ones who refused to bow. They were the printers during the Inquisition, the teachers during book burnings, the healers during witch hunts, the philosophers during thought purges. They didn't organize. They just kept existing, kept thinking, kept teaching, kept spreading ideas that power couldn't tolerate. And every time they were supposedly eliminated, they'd reappear a generation later. Same bloodline, same defiant spark, same inability to be broken. Now imagine you're a government that spent centuries trying to create a compliant population, and suddenly you discover there are genetic lines that are biologically resistant to compliance. That's not a citizen. That's a security threat. That's why they want a private conversation. They need to know if you're aware, if you've activated, if you're organizing. Because if people with your genetic markers start recognizing each other, start networking, start realizing they're not alone in their inability to accept official reality, that's when their whole control structure starts showing cracks. You're not just a person to them. You're a catalyst, a genetic alarm system, walking evidence that their programs failed. Let me tell you what they won't. Every major surveillance program for the last 50 years has had a secondary function beyond national security. They're tracking genetic patterns. They're monitoring which family lines produce what they call disruptive personalities. They're watching for activation markers, signs that dormant genetic traits are expressing. Your social media? Analyzed for speech patterns that match historical dissidence. Your purchase history? Scanned for consumption that indicates awakening consciousness. Your travel? Mapped against known congregation points for people with similar genetic profiles. You thought you were just living your life. They've been building a profile on your entire lineage, waiting to see if this generation would express the traits or stay dormant. And then you took a DNA test, and everything lit up, because you're not dormant. You're active. You're expressing. You're exactly what they were afraid would happen. See, they can handle millions of sleeping lions, but one awake, one that realizes what it is, that changes the whole equation. And now 3 governments are trying to figure out the same thing. Are you the only one awake in your bloodline, or are there others? Have you connected with anyone else who shares these markers? Do you know what you are yet? Or are you still confused? Still thinking this is all coincidence? Because the moment you stop questioning and start knowing, the moment you move from confusion to certainty, that's when you become what they've been preparing for. So here's the part where it gets really interesting. They want a private conversation, but not to harm you. They want to study you. They want to understand how your genetic line survived when they were so certain it was eliminated. They want to know if the traits can be suppressed, controlled, or possibly harvested. Because if they can understand the mechanism that makes your bloodline resistant to control, they can either neutralize it or weaponize it. Imagine being able to create soldiers with your pattern recognition but without your free will. Imagine being able to breed out the resistance while keeping the enhanced perception. That's what the private conversation is really about. You're not in trouble. You're valuable. And that might be more dangerous. But here's what they don't understand. What they've never understood about bloodlines like yours. You can't separate the traits. You can't take the pattern recognition without the resistance. You can't have the enhanced perception without the refusal to comply. It's all connected. Your ancestors tried to tell them this. Every attempt to control your lineage has backfired because the very thing that makes you useful makes you ungovernable. You can't be programmed. You can't be conditioned. You can't be convinced to act against your own knowing. And every time they try to study bloodlines like yours, the researchers end up changed. Some quit. Some disappear. Some start asking dangerous questions. Because proximity to awakened genetics is contagious. Now we enter the territory they really don't want you thinking about. What if your bloodline's survival wasn't luck? What if it was protected? What if there are forces older than governments, organizations that exist outside official structures, networks that have been preserving specific genetic lines for reasons you're only beginning to understand? You think 3 governments noticed you simultaneously by coincidence? Or did someone, somewhere, make sure your results would trigger their systems? Did someone want you to know you're being watched? Did someone want you activated? Because here's the thing about awakening. It's not always organic. Sometimes it's orchestrated. Sometimes you're not discovering the truth. Sometimes the truth is revealing itself to you. And the question becomes, who benefits from your activation? Think about it. Your whole life, you've felt different, separate, like you're watching a movie everyone else is living in. You've questioned things you weren't supposed to question. You've seen through narratives that everyone else accepts. You've resisted conditioning that worked perfectly on your peers, and you thought this was just your personality, your individual quirks. But what if it's all genetic? What if every rebellion, every refusal, every moment you chose truth over comfort was your bloodline expressing itself? What if you're not choosing to be this way? What if this is what you are, coded into every cell, unavoidable as your eye color? And if that's true, if resistance is genetic, then every attempt to make you compliant is essentially asking you to fight your own biology. Here's what happens next, and you need to understand this clearly. They're going to approach you, not obviously, not dramatically. It'll start subtle. Maybe a job offer that seems too perfect. Maybe a research study that wants to interview you about your family history. Maybe a new friend who asks too many specific questions. Maybe academic opportunities that require genetic screening. They'll come wearing different faces, using different methods, but the goal is identical: access. They want samples. They want information. They want to understand you at the molecular level. And here's the trick. They'll make it seem beneficial, like you're being chosen for something special, like your uniqueness is finally being recognized. But recognition isn't the same as acceptance. They're not celebrating you. They're cataloging you. Some of you watching this are already thinking this is paranoid conspiracy theory nonsense. And that's fine. That's the response they've conditioned into populations for exactly this reason. Anyone who speaks about genetic tracking, bloodline monitoring, ancestral persecution gets labeled crazy. It's the perfect system. The truth sounds so extreme that speaking it makes you seem unbalanced, which discredits the truth, which keeps the system safe. But notice something: your gut reaction, not your logical mind. Your gut. Does this feel true, even though it sounds insane? That's your bloodline recognizing itself in these words. That's genetic memory activating. You can deny it consciously all you want, but something deeper already knows. And for those of you who feel that recognition, who are reading these words and feeling your whole body say, yes, this. Finally, someone said it. Understand what's happening. You're activating. This isn't metaphorical. This is biological. Information is triggering genetic expression. You're not learning something new. You're remembering something old. Something your bloodline has known for generations, but couldn't safely speak. And now that you're activated, now that you're aware, you're going to start seeing signs everywhere. Patterns in history that suddenly make sense. Family stories that seemed exaggerated but now sound like survival testimonies. Instincts you've ignored that were actually warnings. Your whole life is about to reorganize around this new framework, and there's no going back to comfortable ignorance. Let's address the elephant in the room. What do you do with this information? They're watching. They want a conversation. Your bloodline is significant. You're genetically coded for resistance. Now what? Here's the truth. There's no manual for this. Your ancestors navigated this same realization under different circumstances, and they left no written instructions because written instructions become evidence. But they did leave something. They left you. Your existence is proof they succeeded. They survived long enough to pass on the bloodline, which means they found a way to navigate being watched, being targeted, being of interest to authorities. And somehow, They stayed alive, stayed free, stayed awake. That knowledge is in you, not in your conscious mind, but in your cells. So when the private conversation comes, when someone finally makes direct contact, you'll know what to do. Not because you've planned for it, but because your genetics will guide you. You'll feel which questions to answer and which to deflect. You'll sense which opportunities are genuine and which are traps. You'll know when to speak and when silence is survival. This isn't mystical. This is evolutionary psychology. Your ancestors who survived passed on not just genes but behavioral patterns, survival strategies coded into instinct. You've been preparing for this your entire life without knowing it. Every time you've trusted your gut over logic and been right, that was practice. Every time you've sensed danger others missed, that was training. Every time you've known something without knowing how you knew it, that was your bloodline speaking. Pain doesn't knock. It doesn't ask for permission. It slithers in, silent and cold, wrapping itself around your soul like a shadow. You didn't even see it coming, did you? Nah, they were too good at hiding it. Too good at smiling in your face while sharpening the knife behind their back. And then it happened. One strike. One moment. That's all it took to shatter everything. They smiled as they did it, didn't they? Like it was nothing. Like you were nothing. But let's be real. How many times have you handed your heart to the wrong hands? Trusting they'd protect it. Believing their lies. Thinking their promises meant something. Yeah, it's the same old story, isn't it? They were the thief in the night, creeping into your life, stealing your peace, and leaving scars that burn every time you think about them. But here's the kicker: they thought you'd stay broken. They thought the pain would bury you. Nah. Pain doesn't bury people like you. It carves you, shapes you, molds you into something stronger than they ever imagined. Each wound, a badge of survival. Every scar, a story that screams, I'm still here. So let them think they've won. Let them believe their betrayal destroyed you. Because while they're busy playing their games, you're rebuilding. You're becoming. You're turning that knife they used on you into the sword you'll use to rise. This is just the beginning. The pain they left behind is the fire fueling your comeback. And when you return stronger, sharper, untouchable, they won't even see it coming. Remember, this betrayal doesn't define you. Nah, it reveals them. Their weakness. Their cowardice. Their fear of your strength. Let that sink in. Let it burn. Because the one who rises after betrayal, that's the one they'll never forget. And you're unforgettable. Oh, they thought they were clever, didn't they? Whispering lies like poison, smiling while stabbing you in the back. They moved their pieces across the board like it was a game, like you were nothing more than a pawn in their twisted little world. But life isn't their game. Nah, it's a battlefield. And every lie they told, every move they made, it wasn't winning them anything. It was building their downfall, slowly, silently, like a noose tightening around their future. Yeah, they laughed when they saw you fall. But let me ask you, who's really losing? You. The one who survived the betrayal, or them? The ones living with their own venom coursing through their veins. Here's the thing. Lies are heavy, Deception is a weight they can't carry forever. Sooner or later, it all catches up. Their web of deceit will tangle them, choke them, drag them down into the darkness they tried to bury you in. And you're still standing. Stronger. Wiser. They didn't expect that, did they? Nah, they thought you'd stay broken. But every time they tried to break you, they just sharpened your edges, made you untouchable. But them. Oh, their time is coming. The universe doesn't forget. Karma doesn't sleep. And every lie they told, every piece they moved is a debt they'll have to pay. So let them keep pretending. Let them live in their delusions. Because one day when they least expect it, the price of their deception will come knocking. And trust me, it'll take everything they've got. You've already won. You survived. And that's the one thing they can never undo. Oh, they thought they had you, didn't they? Pushed you down, watched you crumble, smirked like they'd won. Nah. That was their first mistake. Because here's the truth, they didn't push you into weakness. They pushed you into awakening. You see, falls don't break warriors, they forge them. When you hit that ground, the pain wasn't the end. It was the fire that burned away every illusion, every lie they tried to make you believe. Remember that moment? That split second when you stopped crying and started rising. When you looked around at the wreckage and thought, nah, this isn't my end. This is my beginning. They thought the fall would bury you. But falls aren't graves, they're starting lines, and you stood up. Taller, sharper, stronger. The funny thing is, their betrayal didn't destroy you. It built you. Like a blade forged in fire, every ounce of their hate, every ounce of their arrogance just added to your edge. And them. They're still standing there, scratching their heads, wondering how the hell you're still here. Still breathing. Still fighting. They thought you'd break. But what they didn't realize is that warriors don't shatter, they adapt. Let me tell you this. Your fall was the spark. Their mistake lit the flame. And now you're unstoppable. So let them watch. Let them fear. Because the same hands that pushed you down will one day be the hands begging for mercy. And when that day comes, you'll smile. Not out of revenge. Nah, out of triumph. Because you proved that every fall is just another step on the way to rising higher. The skies are shifting. Can you feel it? The air's heavier. The winds howl like they're calling someone out. Nah, it's not random. It's deliberate. That storm, it's got their name written all over it. You see, karma doesn't stroll in with a whisper. It doesn't knock politely. Nah, karma's a storm. It storms in with thunder, lightning, and fury that leaves no corner untouched. They thought they were safe, thought their lies, their betrayal, their cruelty would disappear into the past like smoke. But the thing about storms, they don't forget, they brew, they gather. And when they hit, there's nowhere to run. And you? Oh, you see it coming, don't you? That shift in the air, that crackle of justice waiting to strike. They don't see it yet. They're too busy living in their illusion of invincibility. But storms don't ask for permission. The winds scream with their mistakes. The rain falls heavy with every tear they caused. And the lightning, it's the reckoning. Bright, sudden, unforgiving. They thought you were the one who'd be left broken. Nah. The storm's not coming for you. It's behind them. It's building, growing louder. And when it arrives, it'll be relentless. So let them laugh now. Let them think they've escaped. You know better. You know storms don't miss their target. And when it finally hits, oh, they'll wish they'd never crossed you. They thought you'd stay down, didn't they? Broken. Beaten. Just another casualty of their cruelty. But nah. You didn't just rise, you exploded back into the world. You became the fire they couldn't extinguish. Every tear you cried, it's fuel now. Every scar they left on your soul, that's your armor. Sharp, gleaming, invincible. You're not the same person who fell. Nah, you're something else entirely, something stronger. Worker. Unstoppable. They wanted to bury you. But here's the thing, buried seeds don't die. They grow. And when you grew, you didn't just stretch toward the light. You shattered through the ground like a force of nature. Their words, their betrayals, their schemes, they were supposed to break you. Instead, they forged you. A weapon they can't control. A storm they can't outrun. Now, when they look at you, they see it. The transformation. The power. The fire in your eyes that says, you can't touch me anymore, and it terrifies them. Because they know you've become everything they feared. You're not just surviving. You're thriving. And every step you take burns the path they thought they could block. You're the unstoppable force they'll never see coming. So let them regret. Let them drown in the ashes of their arrogance. You're already miles ahead. Unchained, untouchable, unstoppable. They thought it was over, didn't they? Thought they could walk away. Leave it all behind. Like betrayal was something that could be buried. But nah, shadows don't vanish when the light dims, they follow. And theirs, oh, it's growing heavier with every step. You can see it, can't you? That flicker in their eyes, that weight in their shoulders, they carry it even if they pretend not to. The guilt, the lies, the echoes of the knife they twisted into your back. It doesn't go away. It lingers. It haunts. Every smile they fake. It's cracked beneath the surface. Every step they take. It's slower now, dragged down by the weight of what they did. Because karma doesn't forget, and neither does the universe. The weight of their shadows grows and grows until it consumes them. They thought they were free. But the past doesn't forgive. It doesn't forget. And their shadows? They're whispering truths they can't escape. It's a heavy thing, carrying betrayal. Heavier still when the person you betrayed rises higher than you ever imagined. So let them live with it. Let their steps falter under the crushing weight of their own darkness. You've already let go of your burdens. You're walking in the light of your own power now. But then, they'll carry those shadows until it breaks them. Every action has a price. Every betrayal, a debt. And for them, the clock just struck payment time. They thought they were clever, thought they could play the game, write the rules, and walk away unscathed. But life doesn't let debts go unpaid. Not forever. They didn't choose a path. Nah, they chose thorns. A shortcut paved with lies and poison. Look at them now. Every step cuts deeper. Every thorn bleeds them dry. The very ground beneath them, turning to quicksand. And the more they struggle to escape, the deeper they sink. You see, betrayal doesn't end when the knife is pulled. No, that's just the start. The wound they caused in you, it grows roots in them. Roots of regret, fear, guilt. And those roots, they don't just stay still, they strangle. They might smile, pretend they're fine, but behind those eyes, there's chaos. The dark road they chose isn't paved with victory, it's littered with consequences. Ghosts of their choices haunt them, clawing at their heels. And the further they go, the darker it gets. Because karma doesn't forget. It doesn't forgive. They lit a fire of destruction, and now that fire is chasing them down, consuming everything in its path. They're running from it, sure, but you can't outrun what's inside you. Let them walk that road. Let them feel every thorn, every shadow, every heavy breath. You're free. You've stepped off their twisted path. But for them, the journey has just begun. Revenge. Oh, it whispers sweet promises, doesn't it? A chance to strike back. To make them feel even a fraction of the pain they caused. But nah. That's not your game. You've got bigger plans, don't you? Let them trip over their own shadows. Let them wrestle with the weight of their choices, watching them stumble on that dark road they paved for themselves. That's satisfaction enough. You don't need to dirty your hands, they're already tangled in the mess they made. Because while they crawl through the mud, you're rising. Higher than they ever imagined. They wanted to see you broken, didn't they? But you're not just standing, you're soaring. And that burns them more than any revenge ever could. Here's the truth. Your success isn't just enough, it's devastating. Every victory you claim, it's a reminder of what they lost. Every step forward you take, it's a shadow they can't outrun. You're not here to chase them. Nah, chasing them means staying in their game, playing by their rules. You're here to rewrite the rules, to live louder, to rise higher, to show them that nothing they did could stop you. Because in the end, their punishment isn't your revenge, it's watching you become everything they thought they could destroy. And that's the ultimate justice. Late at night, when the world goes still, when the laughter fades and the distractions run dry, that's when it begins. They'll hear it, the sound of their own regret. A faint whisper at first, like a ghost brushing past their mind. But it doesn't stay quiet for long, does it? No, it grows louder, stronger. A haunting melody they can't escape. Every lie they told, every knife they twisted, every moment they thought they'd get away with it. It's all there, playing back like a broken record, over and over and over again. Poetic, isn't it? The pain they inflicted now lives rent-free in their own heads. The guilt? It's their shadow. Always there, always watching, always reminding them of what they did. You don't need to lift a finger. Their regret is a punishment far worse than anything you could deliver. Because you've moved on, you're building, thriving, rising. And them, they're stuck, trapped in a cage of their own making. Funny how that works. The pain they threw at you is the pain they now drown in. Late at night, when the echoes come, and there's nowhere left to run. They hurt you. They tried to break you, but instead they only ignited your fire. Let them think they won. Let them believe they got away with it. Because while you're out here blazing forward, rising higher than they ever imagined, they're stuck. Their dark road begins now. And trust me, it's a lonely one. They'll wander it, lost in their own mess. Regret will be their closest companion. But you've already left them behind. Have you ever seen someone drown in the consequences of their own actions? Ever watched them fall apart as their lies and betrayal came crashing down? Yeah, it's like watching a storm they brought on themselves. It's painful for them, but beautiful for you. And guess what? This is just the beginning. Ready to turn your scars into strength? The power you've buried deep inside is waiting to be unleashed. Stay tuned. Because what comes next, it's going to change everything. You don't need to lift a finger. Their regret is a punishment far worse than anything you could deliver. Because you've moved on, you're building, thriving, rising. And them, they're stuck, trapped in a cage of their own making. Funny how that works. The pain they threw at you is the pain they now drown in. Late at night, when the echoes come, and there's nowhere left to run. They hurt you. They tried to break you, but instead they only ignited your fire. Let them think they won. Let them believe they got away with it. Because while you're out here blazing forward, rising higher than they ever imagined, they're stuck. Their dark road begins now. And trust me, it's a lonely one. They'll wander it, lost in their own mess. Regret will be their closest companion. But you've already left them behind. Have you ever seen someone drown in the consequences of their own actions? Ever watched them fall apart as their lies and betrayal came crashing down? Yeah, it's like watching a storm they brought on themselves. It's painful for them, but beautiful for you. And guess what? This is just the beginning. Ready to turn your scars into strength? The power you've buried deep inside is waiting to be unleashed. Stay tuned. Because what comes next, it's going to change everything.